What are LLC distributions and when can I receive them? This is Sam Bryant. I'm a business attorney with Bryant Taylor Law. And so today we're going to talk about LLC distributions. So LLC distributions are basically money that the members of an LLC receive by just their status as members. So as you may know, a member of an LLC is basically the same thing as an owner. A member is a person or an entity that owns an equity interest in the LLC. So as a reward for owning that equity interest, you are entitled to a share of the profits of the LLC, and you also share the responsibility of the losses of the LLC every single period. The money that's allocated as profits are essentially split up amongst the owners of the LLC, which is what we call a distribution. So LLCs have a lot of flexibility, especially in Florida, in how they operate. There are some guidelines, there are some laws that govern the distributions. But for the most part, as an owner of an LLC, you just really have to focus on what's best for you and your business. So if someone were to ask me, when should I allocate my distributions or when should I distribute the profits to the owners of the LLC? I'll just tell them that that's a business decision. Now, from a legal standpoint, your operating agreement of your LLC should cover when distributions should be made, just so you protect the LLC from any accusations from other partners on wrongfully withholding a member's fair share of the distribution. But if you don't have an operating agreement, or your operating agreement is intentionally vague on when you actually make your distributions or for how much you make your distributions, you have a lot of discretion and flexibility on when you make those distributions. The only thing that I would say is if you are going to make a distribution, in Florida at the very least, there's the guideline that you cannot make a distribution if making the distribution does not allow the LLC to fulfill its debts in its ordinary course of business. So what you're really looking for here is you don't want to be in a situation where you're making distributions that just deplete the entire funds of the LLC, because doing that is basically a way of avoiding paying your creditors, and you don't want to be personally liable for a creditor claim. So you want to make sure that whatever distributions are made, that there's enough money in the corporate or the LLC bank account that could cover those debts and obligations. But there are other circumstances which you cannot make distributions or where there's some guidelines on it. But those are very nuanced topics. I think for the purposes of this video, I think it's enough to just know that when you have an LLC, a distribution is the money that the owners of the LLC, or otherwise known as the members, that they receive by their very virtue of being a member. There's no hard, fast rule on when you have to make these distributions. Those are usually covered in the operating agreement. If they're not, then you really have a lot of discretion on when you make them. But you just want to make sure that whenever you decide to make these LLC distributions, you don't have so many distributions that it leaves the LLC bank account barren to where the LLC can't cover its debts and obligations. Hope you found that video helpful. If you did, we have plenty of other videos on the channel that really help you grow and sustain your companies, your businesses. If you want to speak to a Florida business attorney, we have our contact information in the description below.